right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Monday night live stream for Week 7 now of the 2024 fantasy football season. Of course, this is post-Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills, in which the Buffalo Bills were able to hold on and capture a victory. Over the course of the next hour plus in regards to this live stream, we're answering any and all fantasy football questions. So if you guys have a question regarding your league, whether it's a trade question, a waiver wire, a potential starter sit going into Week 7, include your scoring format. Again, whether it's standard, half PPR, full PPR, the more context you provide, the better it'll be in terms of me being able to understand exactly what your situation is and try to help you in that overall scenario. Outside of that, I hope you guys are doing well. Earlier today, we did drop our video in regards to waiver wire pickups for Week 7. As you can see to the bottom right of the screen, we have the thumbnail there with Demario Douglas on it. You know, there isn't too many great options in terms of waiver wire pickups, but there are a couple gems in there that could potentially be of value. Speaking of a gem, I mean, did Ray Davis, the thumbnail of this live stream, and of course someone that I mentioned on Friday's Hidden Gems episode, did he deliver? I mean, in the absence of James Cook, that's as good of a game as we could have possibly imagined. They came out of the gates and they ran the ball down their throat. I'm surprised that the Buffalo Bills, after starting the game in the first drive, 8 rushing attempts and only 1 passing attempt, I'm surprised they didn't just continue to run the ball. He continued to deliver, and I'm glad that it did. For those of you who had him on roster and had the ability to pivoting off of James Cook in order to have him available and start him, I'm glad that he was able to deliver in some sort of capacity. If he still wasn't able to get you a victory, it is what it is. That is the unfortunate nature of having Josh Allen as your starting quarterback. He's always going to be viable for stealing a potential rushing touchdown. It always exists. But outside of that, the game as a whole, Khalil Shakir barely played, so it looks like he's definitely injured. And anytime he was even in the game, oftentimes they're throwing to the opposite side of the field. Kincaid got himself a pretty good volume of touches. Unfortunately, Dawson Knox is coming down with that touchdown. As for the Jets side of the football, Allen Lazard, 4 of the last 6 games with a receiving touchdown? I don't care how he does it. He just does it every single time. And then we have, of course, Breece Hall, who looks significantly better. The running game a little bit more intact. Speaking of the running game, earlier today, in regards to the waiver wire episode that I dropped earlier today, the one and only suggestion that I made was this following slip, and it hit. Listen, we somehow, I want to say that it's skill, but also there's a lot of luck implied. Nonetheless, for another consecutive primetime game, Andrew's coming in clutch, helping y'all win money. So again, if you haven't yet already, check out Underdog, use code Andrew, get the rankings every single Sunday morning, potentially tail these picks. Going back to Friday's video, man, was I so close to being omega accurate in the week. Even going back to last Thursday, those 3 hit. Then we go into Friday's video, right? These 3 hit. This one, this was big for me, okay? I put in 500 to win 3,000. This was big for me, okay? Then, Calvin Ridley just had to do me dirty. Okay, just to put this into perspective, Calvin Ridley, 0 receiving yards. Bruh, I had it. I don't understand what Will Levis is doing. I mean, I'm done with it. I can't anymore. Unless it's Tony Pollard, I don't want to talk about the Tennessee Titans anymore. Left a really bad taste in my mouth. But again, one wrong, okay, so be it. And then there was another play that unfortunately, Amari Cooper comes out of nowhere and just decides, I just, no targets for me today. I'm good. Deshaun Watson, only 24 passing attempts, even though, again, in terms of overall accuracy, I'm pretty good. In terms of overall picks that I'm suggesting, but man, these were brutal. This is 100 to win 1,300, and I might be getting a little too cute with it, but either way, for Week 6 as a whole, pretty good. Starting from Thursday, going to Monday, all ships to go, and hopefully we're going to continue that trend going into Week 7 as we have over the course of this season. So again, I do appreciate y'all. Let's get into answering questions, okay, shall we? So let's go ahead, and I know there was a couple super chats sent in. Cowboy sends in a question. Says, drop Kirk Cousins for Jared Goff. I mean, look, the Jared Goff that we have seen in the last 2 performances in which the Detroit Lions have had, I say that we're probably in a good position to pick him up and keep him moving, especially considering he's past his bye week. When I look at the upcoming schedule for the Detroit Lions, let's pull this up real quick. This week, obviously, they have the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, in terms of allowing points to opposing wide receivers, they're number 1 in the league. So, again, we're going to anticipate a lot of success there. The week after, they have Tennessee. Again, if Joe Flacco can tear apart that secondary, I would assume that Jared Goff, with all the weapons that he has and, to his disposal, will play well. Then they get Green Bay, Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis. Again, that Green Bay game, that Houston game, potential shootouts. Jacksonville, terrible defense. Indianapolis Colts, terrible defense. The upcoming schedule here for Jared Goff, really primed and ready. Of course, past the bye week. So, yeah, I don't mind that at all. It's not to say that, Kirk Cousins isn't a, solid option going forward either. Just obviously Jared Goff, the comfort in that offense, the kind of upside that he presents in that scenario. Obviously, Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, within this week, due to the fact that we had, Tyler Algier with 18 rushing attempts, and of course, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bijan had like 15 rushing attempts. When you run the ball 30 plus times in a game, the quarterback's going to be obviously suffer from it, unfortunately. All right, CG Ghost sends in a question, says, happy birthday, bro. Thank you very much. I'm 6-0, just letting him hang out of, baby. Listen, 6-0, but job's not finished, right? 6-0 is beautiful. We're just still trying to improve the team, right? If you could try to go get, Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, it may serve you well. Especially earlier today, Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, he did in fact confirm that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be playing sometime this season. Now, as for when, they didn't want to designate that. Of course, he is still in the injured. He's still on the injured reserve. So I think they'll open up the practice window probably next week, which we're hoping is going to be the case. So yeah, try to improve the team. But yeah, well done, 6-0. That again, 6-0 is great. A lot of it is luck, though. Okay, so don't let it get to your head. Okay, we're still trying to improve. Cinco2X sends in a question, says, I can't play Prize Picks where I'm from, but I took your picks and put them on FanDuel, and you hit, bro. Yeah. Hey, listen, whichever way you guys do it. Again, if you're playing in a state in which it doesn't allow, like my state does not allow FanDuel or anything like that, so I play via Underdog, and that is always. I mean, it's just easy for me, right? It's just, it's quick, easy, boom. I'm putting in plays and I'm moving on with the entries. But I'm glad that you hit Cinco. Drew sent in a message and said, let's start the stream with a bang. Check Discord. Okay, let me let me check Discord. Let's see what you had here. Drew, did you end up playing Ray Davis? Because I honestly, at that point, I had just I just logged off. Let's see here. You played Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Kincaid, and Ray Davis, and you came back to win? Dude, I almost want to... Okay, hold up. Let me just... I'm going to... If you don't mind, Drew, I'm going to take a screenshot of your play, and I'm going to just show the stream, because that is incredible. I'm going to save this to my desktop, and I will share it with the masses. That is a ridiculous comeback and an absolute clutch victory that, again... you have no business winning that matchup. You have no business coming back by that many points down and pulling off a victory of that capacity, but here it is. Just so we all see it. I'll just expand it on this side of the screen just so it's easier. So Drew, a fellow Patreon supporter, he's on the left side in this overall circumstance in which he comes back with the efforts of Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Dalton Kincaid, and Ray Davis to clutch out a victory by less than 1 point. I mean, the player you're going up against this week, I mean, having Marvin Harrison with 0 in concussion protocol probably has them completely distraught at the moment, but hey, we'll take it, man. I love it. Congratulations on the dub. All right, continuing on with some of these questions. We had one that came in from Xavier. It says, hey, you told people to start Tracy. Let's go. Listen, okay. Here's the thing. I don't care if I'm... Well, okay. No. Let's redact that statement. I was going to say I don't care if I'm right. No. I'm happy with them when I'm right, but I don't need to celebrate it, right? I'm just trying to figure out where did I go wrong, and then how do we fix that? Kyler Murray, that's a problem. That is a problem that I've messed up on multiple occasions this season already, right? Joe Mixon, way too low in comparison to what he produced, okay? I mean, there's some things that you cannot predict, and then there's some things I got to be smarter about. That's just the fact of the matter. There are some players that I've just got to adjust accordingly. But ultimately, yeah, if Tracy delivered for you, beautiful. I'm glad to hear it. And again, I hope that he overthrows Devin Singletary. I've got him on too many teams. I need him to overthrow Devin Singletary, in fact. But yeah, congrats, Xavier, if that helped you out. Old J Running sent in a question, says, hello, Andrew. Drop Goddard for Njoku or Otton. Okay, so first and foremost, I don't know the severity of Goddard's injury. I know it's a hamstring. Goddard gets injured every year. I want everyone to understand, okay? At this current moment in time, if you have the potential, the possibility of trading for Devontae Smith, you need to do it now, okay? Every year, it's not even hyperbole. This is not a joke. This is an actual piece of advice. Every year, Dallas Goedert gets injured. He misses a handful of games, 4 or 5 games maybe, okay? In that absence, in that span of time in which he is absent, Devontae Smith averages a significantly higher fantasy point per game total than normal. Like I'm talking about, instead of averaging, so let's say, for example, let me actually figure this out. So just to put this into perspective. So like last year at a half PPR, let's find his number. Wide receiver, 2023, half PPR. So Devontae Smith, last season in a half PPR, finished as wide receiver 20, but he was averaging 11.7 fantasy points per game. In the games in a half PPR where there is no Dallas Goedert, the guy's averaging like 15, 16 points per game. Okay, this is not a drill. Once we go over wide receiver rankings on Wednesday, I will reiterate these statistics as for the absence of Dallas Goedert and what that presents for Devontae Smith in games. I'm telling you, if you have a possibility of doing so, you trade for him now, and then you can potentially, once Dallas Goedert comes back, sell him back off, or you keep him for the remainder of the season because, again, he's one of my favorite receivers of the year. Anyway, as for your question, dropping Goddard, you could probably throw him on your IR because he'll probably miss a couple weeks here with the hamstring. If not, if it's potentially worse, if it's more severe, maybe go to the IR himself. As for who we're picking up, Njoku or Otton, again, I don't really want to trust any receiving options that are related closely to Deshaun Watson in any sort of capacity. So I'd say potentially Otton in that scenario, coming off of a week in which he scored a touchdown, which is great. As for your second question, drop Olave for Downs or Dobbs. I'm not dropping Olave. Rashid Shaheed sustained a really bad injury, enough to where there's a possibility that he misses an extended period of time. Chris Olave is in the concussion protocol, so he will probably miss this upcoming week because it is a short week going into Thursday's game against Denver. So you're going to probably be able to move him to your IR spot and then pick up a player accordingly. So if those guys clear the waivers, you might be able to pick them up for free. As for your next question, drop Moss for Singletary or Algier. I'd be willing to drop Moss probably to pick up Singletary in that scenario in case Tyrone Tracy isn't given the benefit of the doubt by the coaching staff based on how well he's played. And thank you for the happy birthday. AJ sends in a question, says drop Jalen or Wicks. Wicks got injured, so there's a possibility that he could miss some time. If you need to drop one though, I would probably say we're dropping Jalen Tolbert because probably after the bye week, Brandon Cooks comes back. And Tolbert is, again, not going to play this week, so he doesn't really provide you any sort of value in this circumstance. Thank you. Hold and name waiver priority. What do you mean by name waiver priority? I don't know what exactly that final statement is. Again, if you're looking for waiver priority in terms of players, the waiver wire video that is, again, the thumbnail's here. It was posted earlier today. You can check that out, AJ. Thank you. Moving on to Deli Meat, who says, should I get Lazard, DeMario Douglas, or Keenan Allen? Okay, so here's the thing. Depends on what you need. If you need immediate impact, right? DeMario Douglas and Lazard provide that. DeMario Douglas in a full PPR, probably a little bit more valuable, even though obviously Lazard has been a touchdown fiend. He'll continue to be a touchdown monster. I mean, I don't think that changes unless, of course, a Devontae Adams trade is going to happen within the next couple of days, which again, very easily could happen. Time will tell. But again, if you're not looking for immediate impact, Keenan Allen is the late-term potential upside player out of the group. Then it would be DeMario in a full PPR and then Lazard. If you can assume that there is no potential Devontae Adams. After this loss, I think there's going to be a Devontae Adams, if I had to guess so myself. Again, the only other trade suitor for Devontae Adams as of this season was the New Orleans Saints. They do not have cap room. So unless the Las Vegas Raiders are willing to eat, 15 plus mil, and then, sell them away for a high, because if you're going to eat 15 mil, you need to send a second round pick. You need to buy the pick pretty much with how much of the contract you're going to eat. So if they end up doing something like that, sure. But otherwise, I don't think it'll happen. I think the only suitors are really the Jets at this point. So as of right now, probably sticking with Keenan if you don't need immediate help. Otherwise, it's DeMario. Thank you. We move on to a question that comes in from Juice, who says, Lazard over Ayuk? Rest of the season, Lazard feels safe. He feels safe as long as Devontae Adams isn't looming. That is the only factor. If Devontae Adams continues to get any sort of traction, he doesn't go back to playing for the Raiders, which again, he shouldn't. The assumption would be that, of course, there's going to be a potential in which, of course, Lazard gets impacted. Now, if there is no Devontae Adams, he goes somewhere else, or he goes back to playing for the Raiders, and so be it. Lazard is going to be a great option. As for better than Ayuk rest of the season, he has been thus far. So if he continues, again, if you guys remember, back in 2022, the final season in which Aaron Rodgers played with the Green Bay Packers, Lazard finished as a top 36 wide receiver in fantasy. In fact, in a half PPR, he finished as wide receiver 32 overall. So this isn't uncommon to have seen this kind of potential for him. God's Gang sends in a question, says, looking for a running back, not really going to be able to trade for one in my league is tough on trades. I have Etienne, Hall, Najee, Braylon. Okay, so you've got 2 good running backs. You've got Hall and Najee. Everything else is a disaster. Picked up Tracy. Okay, cool. What would you do? I'm going to bench Etienne and insert Najee. Yeah, you have to bet. Well, look, Etienne's probably not going to play this week. They're still in London, and they're going to play the Patriots this upcoming Sunday morning. Do not forget that stream will start for the channel at 6 a.m. PST. Etienne's probably not going to play, hamstring issue. Even if he does play, I'm not starting him. Braylon Allen doesn't get a start, so it's between Hall, Najee, and Tracy. Now, of course, you would theoretically play Tracy in the absence of Devin Singletary, but until then, Hall and Najee Harris would be the plugins for 1 and 2. They do take each other on. It's the Jets versus the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming Sunday, so of course will be interesting, but Najee Harris going up against that Bills run stop defense, that Jets run stop defense that was getting torched by the Bills today. Could be something of benefit. And we'll talk about it tomorrow in the running back rankings video. This right now, week 6, what Najee Harris did, this is the jump off point. Every single season for the last 2 years, 2022, 2023, and now 2024, every season, week 6 or 7, Najee Harris takes the jump. And he begins to take off and being a 12 to 13 fantasy point per game running back and a half PPR. He took the jump last week and he's going to continue to excel for the remainder of the season. So for those of you who went back and invested in him, because I told you, this is the jump off point, get ready for it. Will be able to benefit. Aiden0815 says, Mahomes is on the waivers in my league. Should I drop him for Mahomes is on waivers in my league. Should I drop him for Fields or Richardson? So is he on waivers or is he on your team? Because when you say, should I drop him? That would make me feel like he is on your team. If he's on your team, I'd rather have Fields, honestly. Again, Fields, 5 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 games. That is enough to convince me that I'll take Fields there. And it doesn't look like, of course, Russell Wilson's coming in anytime soon. Obviously, anything that if a losing streak it was to occur, sure, they could potentially replace him. Job stability is not 100% in that scenario, but it's pretty solid right now. Thank you for the question, Aiden. And of course, as soon as I try to go to the live chat, my YouTube crashes. Okay. So now that we've gone through those questions, let's get to the live chat, answer some of these questions. Freddie, what's up, man? Says, any players to target if Adams owner? As in, are you trading away Adams, Freddie? That's my question at this point. Mike Williams is a cut for what? For real life or for fantasy? Because fantasy, he's never been relevant this season. For real life, definitely lost his legs there, unfortunately. Andrew, when did you post your underdog picks besides Friday Hidden Gems video? So Hidden Gems video, and then Friday night live stream, Saturday afternoon live stream, and even on Sunday morning, I sometimes share it. So pretty much Friday through the weekend of streams and videos. That's when I share those. Or like today's pick, I shared in the video here, right? So the waiver wire video that came out earlier today, I shared the pick. Last Thursday's picks, I shared on the video that was posted that day, which was quarterback and tight end videos. I always post them at the back end of the video, but that's why I have timestamps in every video. So you go down in the description and you go find underdog entry, click on it, fast forward to that section, and boom, you can watch from there. Make Music, what's up? Says Lamb is on a bye next week. I need the W. Who are we trading for him? For 2-for-1 or 1-for-1 in a half PPR? Oh, dude, that's very dependent on who wants him in your league. If you're trading away Lamb at this point, obviously you want a stud wide receiver in return. So I'll be very happy going after an Amon-Ra St. Brown if you can go get him. Malik Neighbors if you can go get him. Anybody of that top tier caliber. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult at the current moment to trade for a guy of the caliber of like an AJ Brown or a Jamar Chase, considering how they have played over the course of the last couple weeks here. In terms of other top tier wide receivers, you can't trade for Tyreek Hill at the moment, but maybe there's a possibility that you could get a Devontae Smith plus another player in exchange for him. Devontae Smith plus a Chase Brown, something of that extent to where like you're getting 2 key players. I doubt that you'll get that though. It's very dependent on who wants Lamb and who can survive with him on bye this week in your league. What can I get for Devontae? I'm 5-1 and I need more firepower instead of T. Higgins, Lamb, and Cup. I think you have enough firepower. Honestly, I don't think you want to be. If you're trading Devontae, if it's Devontae Adams that you're trading away, you have to trade to someone who actually believes that he's going to be traded sooner rather than later, right, Saul? So really, you're looking for someone that thinks he's going to the Jets and you can actually give him away. Like if it's me, I'm sending him away for Tyreek Hill. That's the kind of firepower at 5-1 that I'm looking for. That's what I'd go for, at least in my opinion. Victor says, man, I asked you Tracy or Reed in a standard. You said Tracy. Then I put Reed and... Wait, what? Man, I asked you Tracy or Reed. Standard. You said Reed. Then I put Tracy and lost by 3 points. Damn. Listen, it is what it is. I don't think Reed was a bad play, though, right? Even if I say Tracy and you put in Reed, I don't think Reed was a bad play in this scenario. I thought that you didn't have a wrong answer. The only issue is, obviously, like Reed just getting injured in that game, and the weather kind of dictated his overall upside. Alfredo says, any wide receiver to target if Adams manager. Got it. Devontae Smith. Tyreek Hill. Freddie, don't you have a good record? I don't remember your team, Freddie. We can talk about it after the stream if you send your team over via Discord. But yeah, I'm thinking if I'm giving away Adams, I want some actual value. You could buy low on Evans right now, theoretically. Let's see here. Aaron in the chat says drop Wicks for Downs. Yeah, I mean, look, Downs should have been picked up as soon as we saw. Well, look, as soon as Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback 2 weeks ago, he should have been picked up. And then on Sunday morning, once they designated that Joe Flacco was going to start, he should have been picked up again. But either way, if you have the possibility of getting him still, yeah, absolutely. He's going to be a mainstay within our offense, absolutely. Even if the quarterback change happens, which it is anticipated to change from Flacco to Richardson this week. Idris had sent in a question, said in a 12-man 5-1, wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, and Cooper Kupp. Okay, very well. My running backs are Tracy, Harris, Moss, and Daddle. So you need running back help is what I'm hearing. Because Moss is not going to be able to function with Chase Brown taking over now. Dowdle is on bye week, which he'll be good once he comes back. But then you have Tracy and Harris, which again aren't going to be able to survive if Tracy isn't the pole position number 1 RB of the Giants offense. So you need a running back for the rest of the season. I got offered Achane for Kupp. Achane owner has Brees. Should I play this? How should I play this? I mean, look, at this point, obviously you want Brees. They're not going to give him to you. I think they'd rather just dip off Achane, and I'm willing to get Achane. What I would be willing to give in exchange for him is probably Devontae Adams. That's what I would prefer to give if I was you. I'd even be willing to give away Deontay Johnson if they want that. But A.J. Brown and Kupp stay in my mind. That's the way that I go about it. And I'd be more than happy to get Achane, even though this upcoming week, I mean, they got a pretty good matchup against Indianapolis. So regardless of who's playing quarterback, he should find success. The last time out obviously wasn't very successful, mainly because of the concussion protocol. Otherwise, later in that game, Jalen Wright and Mostert both on incredible success against the Patriots. So in this circumstance, yeah, I'd take Achane. You're 5-1. I trade away either Devontae Adams or Deontay Johnson, one of the two, and see what you can get in exchange. Now, if they have to get Kupp, then be like, listen, I need Brees Hall. Like, if Puka doesn't come back at a full healthy rate, we're talking about a 20-point wide receiver in a full PPR here. Rogo sends in a question. It says, who do I drop to bring in Chubb in a standard half PPR system? We have CJ Stroud, we have Debo Samuel, Diggs, Gibbs, Montgomery, Kincaid, Hunt. What is that? Cyber, okay. Cyber was great this weekend. Denver's defense, we have Baker, we have Mason, we have Higgins, we have Devontae Smith, we have Cooper, we have Swift. Looking to solidify rest of the season. Yeah, if you're going to drop somebody, it's Amari Cooper, straight up. That is it. He is he's your worst player. And quite frankly, you don't have any bad players, but he is your worst player. So in this scenario, that would be the case. If I was in your position, I would potentially take, Cooper and try to trade him before you have to drop him. Maybe take him and another player and try to 2-for-1, Higgins and Cooper, and try to go get another wide receiver in exchange just to give yourself a little bit more depth in that circumstance. But if you're not capable of doing that before, the Chubb needs to be taken off of the waiver to potentially play him, then yeah. I mean, look, at this point, if I was in your position, Rogo, I don't take him out of IR. I leave him in the IR and I play Montgomery, Gibbs, and Hunt this week very comfortably. And I leave Chubb there because you're not going to play him. I would not play him over the alternative options you have for this week, even Mason if he plays. So really, I just leave him there. And I wouldn't touch it if it was my team. You don't make any roster moves because you don't need to make roster moves. And you just keep it as status quo, Rogo. That's my suggestion. Thank you. Let's see here. Eddie says, first and foremost, I want to say thank you. I was down 8 points and I needed a running back after Ramondre Stevenson went down. I dropped D-Hop, picked up Ray Davis. Congratulations. Glad to hear it, Eddie. Drop Rachaad White. No, just keep him on your IR spot, Ramiro. You don't need to drop him. Again, look, even though Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving are coming off of ridiculous games, yeah. it is even though they're coming off ridiculous games, I would assume that Rachaad White still has some sort of implementation within the offense. He's not going to be completely shattered out. Now, if we get to a point where he does, and he's no longer playing 50-60% of the offensive snaps, then at that point we could talk about it. But until then, keep him. Sean Tucker is going to make a headache in Tampa Bay. You're not wrong, Ben. You're not wrong at all. Anonymous says won the week with that drop from Mike Williams. Oh goodness, that's crazy. High Society says I need to get rid of all my wide receivers: Pittman, Waddle, Ayuk, BTJ, and Reed. Honestly, you've just got a lot of You're I mean, preseason, that is a great receiving core. I still think it's a great receiving core. You just need like a couple weeks of adjustment, and you'll be fine. All right, let's see here. Going down to some of the other super chats that were just sent in recently. Excuse me. Medina 2197 says in a full PPR, Jacobson Metcalf for Kyren Williams. You'd have to play in an 8-man league. That's the only way that I'd potentially justify this as an actual trade. In any scenario outside of that 8-man, 10-man league where you're stacked, I don't think I'm giving away Jacobs and Metcalf for Kyren. Even though Kyren's incredible, I think you're giving up just a little bit too much for my liking, especially if it's like a 10-12 team league where you don't have the depth to be able to survive that. Nick LaRosa sends in a question, says, I have Love, Kyren, Kamara, Chase, DJ Moore, McBride, McConkey, Bucky, Jameson, Dowdle, Bigsby, Fields, Ridley. Okay. 5-1. How can I improve my wide receivers? You drop Calvin Ridley. Oh, man, I have a vendetta against Calvin Ridley now. He's lost all my trust, okay? But how do you improve your wide receiver? Look, at this point, Jamar Chase doesn't move. Jameson had a really big play to make a touchdown. McConkey's fine. He'll continue to get more workload as we continue. I mean, really, at this point, are you trading away DJ Moore? I don't think so. I think you keep him as is. And if you want to improve wide receiver technically, you do so probably trading away Bucky Irving and trying to go get a wide receiver. That would be the only way. But the only people that are going after Bucky Irving right now are people who have Rachaad White, I would assume. Thank you. How much money are we putting on Ray Davis? It depends, man. Like, I want to say that it probably a good amount, but it depends. Like, do you have James Cook? If you do, then there's a different conversation in comparison if you don't. Because if you have James Cook, you need to ensure that you have his handcuff. If you don't have James Cook, it's more like, okay, I'm willing to throw maybe like 10 to 12%. If I do have James Cook, I'm more, 15 to 18%. But it jumps a little bit there. Style sends in a question. Thank you very much, Style. Says, just a small tip, just to say thanks. Also, should leave you some money because it's very likely I get out-nashered. Okay, brother. No. Listen. Likely I out-nashered you in Gears 1. Okay, hold up. Before enjoy the reparations. Okay, dude. Okay, hold up. Wait. Before these allegations begin, okay? First and foremost, in Gears 1, you're talking to someone who was an absolute monster, okay? Gears 1 is what year? Let's figure this out. Hold up. While we're with the allegations, Gears of War 1, okay? This video game came out in 2006, okay? Theoretically, based on that, I'm 11 years old. Maybe 12, okay? 11, 12 years old, depending on when this thing came out, okay? 11, 12-year-old Andrew would have bodied you in that game. There is no chance, because that's all I did. You think I did homework at 11, 12 years old? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I played Gears. I went to sleep. I came home. I played Gears. I went to sleep. That was my life, okay, in 2006, 2007. So I don't want to hear none of this. You would have out-nashed me. I would have two-pieced you. I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. God's Gang sends in a question. Says, what are a couple backup running backs have the best chance of taking over their backfields this year? I know it's tough to predict. I mean, look, there are a couple of the few that are, relatively obvious. Tank Bigsby, Bucky Irving, and then of course, Tracy, I believe, is another one. Funny enough, those are all young players, if not rookie running backs. So another one that I would suggest, right, is the potential of Jonathan Brooks. Once he kind of returns to this offense, obviously they've opened up the 21-day window for him to return. So there's a possibility there that he could end up taking over for Chuba Hubbard. Chuba's played incredibly well, though, so we're going to have to wait and see if that's even possible. Let me see here. Again, I think the rest of the way it's going to have to be like injury that spawn it. Otherwise, you're looking for running backs that have been highly inefficient in their overall opportunities that have just created distrust from the coaching staff to where they're like, all right, we can't trust this player anymore. We have to replace him. That's the only other way it could happen. So a player that comes to mind, Javonte Williams, could estimate the rookie running back for their team potentially come in. He just came off of the IR. This was his first week active. Could he theoretically take over the job? I think there's a possibility of that. Looking at other running backs that are rookie backs that could potentially come in and take away viable touches because of inefficiencies. Looking across the board, there aren't very many. I mean, like, again, it's tough to predict, like you mentioned, but that's not going to happen. Achane is averaging 3.3 yards per carry, but like Mostert's his next man up, right? So like maybe Mostert could be of value, but it's not even like he's a backup. It's like a 1A, 1B when they are both healthy. Outside of that, yeah, that's all I can think for right now in terms of backups that could theoretically take over. That doesn't include injury, right? Because if we're going to talk about including injury, then we're going to throw out names like Emmanuel Wilson or Ty Chandler. You know what I mean? Thank you. God's Gang says, happy birthday, Andrew. Thank you. Appreciate it. David sends in a question. David Dooley says, play Tank Dell or Keenan Allen over Evans next week. Evans plays against Tampa Bay, plays against the Ravens, right? If I'm not mistaken, Monday Night Football. At this point, Mike Evans, sorry. Okay, hold on, wait. Let's rewind here. David, Keenan Allen's on bye week in week 7. So the answer is already set. You're playing Tank Dell and Mike Evans. So that's that. So Keenan Allen is not a playable option. He is on bye week. So Evans and Tank Dell play. Regardless of that, I was going to tell you to play Evans over everybody because, yeah, I'm excited about the matchup against Baltimore, especially considering how well Baker has played. JK says, who's my target if I'm trying to trade away Adams? Again, it depends on your record. I would say it's Devontae Smith. Others would say it's Tyreek Hill. Cooper Kupp, if you have a good record and you can afford for them to return. If it's not those kind of players, right? If you cannot get a Devontae Smith, theoretically, because his value is far too expensive, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what kind of terminology you want to utilize in that circumstance. You could try to go buy low right now on a Brian Thomas Jr., on a Mike Evans, considering they're coming off of very difficult matchups and did not perform well either of the two. You could go after a potential Deontay Johnson, a DJ Moore. But again, it depends on whether you need immediate value or future value. You could go after a Zay Flowers of sorts. But again, that'll be difficult considering the last couple weeks of production. But those are the kind of names that I'm like looking up and down this list, and I'm thinking those are the guys that I want. I'll take a T. Higgins. I will. Do I love it? Do I think I'm getting a little bit of a downgrade? Sure, but I'm getting out of the uncertainty of Adams. So that's another name. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question that came in from Lou, who says, I'm 2-4 in a full PPR. Congratulations, Lou. Who is good return for Hubbard? It depends on the position you're looking for. I have Mayfield, Bijan, Mixon, Moore, Pickens, Kincaid. Okay, so you need a wide receiver theoretically in return. Actually, you don't really, because you have Nakua, Moore, Pickens, Kincaid, Mostert, Shakir, and Murray. Shakir will be more healthy. Puka will eventually come back. You'll be in a solid spot there. You still have 2 starting running backs. Maybe you want a third in case. Like, if I'm giving away Chuba Hubbard, like, I'm not expecting much in return. Like, unless you're playing with people who don't know who Jonathan Brooks is and know the potential value there, like at that point, I'm just going and knocking on Aaron Jones' door and trying to steal him. Or I'm going after James Conner after that most recent performance and trying to steal him accordingly. You're 4-2, I'd even go after Achane. Like, at that point, those are the kind of potential running backs that I'd be going after in exchange. Assuming, of course, they don't understand who Jonathan Brooks is. If they understand who Jonathan Brooks is, no one's going to take him off of your hands. Someone would be like, all right, I'll give you Dowdle, because Dowdle will have long-term value while Chuba Hubbard could eventually lose his job, right? But yeah, let's go for the prior names that I mentioned. Let's go after the Connors, the AJ Browns, or those kind of, not AJ Browns, Aaron Joneses. Sorry, I was thinking AJ in his initials, and I thought AJ Brown, Connor, Aaron Jones, Achane kind of esque players. All right, let's see here. Scrolling down, we had a question that came in from Brian Colorado, who says, in a PPR 2-quarterback league, 4 weeks win streak. Okay, congratulations. Quarterback I have, Love, Fields, Gino, very well. Wide receivers are Chase, DK, Devontae, Kirk, Leggett. My running backs are Kyron, Jacobs, Montgomery, Rico, Singletary, Denver's defense, and Jets defense. Who to drop and who should I target in trades? I mean, look, in terms of this point, you don't drop any of these quarterbacks because, again, you're playing in a 2 QB league. You're going to need to prepare for the upcoming bye weeks. As for wide receivers, Chase, DK, Devontae, I mean, you're pretty solid there. Leggett and Kirk are kind of long-term values to place in the stead of these players once they go and hit bye weeks. So you're chilling there. Kyron Jacobs. Again, when I look at this team as a whole, Brian, I don't move anything. I don't see any glaring necessities. If you see a glaring necessity, it's something that I don't potentially perceive. Maybe it's your tight end position that you didn't end up mentioning. Maybe you don't have a starting tight end position in this league. It's a double flex format. I keep it as is if that's the case. Thank you. YG sends in a question, says Olave for Hawkinson. Olave for Hawkinson. Without seeing Hawkinson play a game, I'd still say I'm okay doing it if your wide receiver depth is ridiculous. It has to be ridiculous. If it's not, at that point, I'd say you're giving up on Olave a little bit too early because, again, that injury that Shaheed sustained, from what I read, it's not looking good. Thank you. Jordy Peasy says, sent a question in the chat if that was easier. Okay, yeah, let me see. I see it, Jordy. Says in a half PPR, I'm 2-4. My quarterbacks are Fields, Anthony Richardson. Wide receivers are JD, Harrison Jr., Lamb, Wicks, Montgomery, Swift, Javonte, Brooks, and Ford are my running backs. We have tight end Evan Ingram. Should I trade CD, Javonte for Kupp and Dobbins? I think okay. So, considering how I perceive Javonte Williams the rest of the season, I would probably tell you to take the deal. But I play it a little bit differently to where I don't even see Javonte as a viable trade piece in this circumstance. I see him as fodder. I see him as a literal just extra body. It's CeeDee Lamb for Kupp and Dobbins. And honestly, Kupp coming back at a full healthy rate based on how this offense has looked without him, I think the Rams go on a little bit of a streak of wins here. And I think Dobbins, again, 4 consecutive games of 18-plus touches, dominating. Obviously, some inefficiencies here and there throughout those times. But again, with a healthy full team, healthy offensive line, has been great every game. So I take it. That would be, that's my approach on that circumstance. Thank you. We move on to a question that came in from Raghav. I probably butchered your name, but Raghav? I don't know. Anyway, I appreciate it. I'm sure you can explain to me how to pronounce it in the future so that I don't get that wrong. Either way, as for your current question, 3-3 in a 10-team full PPR format. We have Fields and Richardson at quarterback. Wow, many of you have Fields and Richardson, huh? H.A. Connor, Jacobs, Hubbard, Tracy, Jamar, Debo, Kupp, Wandell, Tolbert, Goddard, Ferguson. How can I improve? I mean, look, at this point, Goddard's going to be injured, so Ferguson stays as your number one. But an unfortunate nature is that you're going to have to pick up a tight end to play this week because Dallas goes on bye and Goddard's going to be injured. Hopefully, Goddard doesn't miss this week, but if in fact he does, which it is anticipated that is going to be the case considering the hamstring, you're going to need to put Goddard on your injured reserve spot and then subsequently pick up a tight end. If you don't have an available injured reserve spot, you're dropping Tolbert to be able to suffice with an open spot in your team. Now, as to how you potentially improve this team, I don't see a way that you can theoretically improve unless you are taking Kupp and Wan'Dale Robinson and trading for AJ Brown. You'd have to go for the big dogs because really Jamar Chase, Debo Samuel do not move off this team. Cooper Kupp, in my opinion, wouldn't move off this team either. But if you're trying to theoretically, quote unquote, improve, that would be the way. In a 10-man league, you take 2 studs and you'd go give it for one singular player. As for running back, you could do the same by taking Hubbard along with Tracy and seeing if you can go give somebody one, both those running backs for one in exchange. I think it's going to be difficult. But like I mentioned earlier, if somebody in your league does not understand that Jonathan Brooks is coming back, you can potentially give away Hubbard and get back a James Conner and Aaron Jones. Maybe even go for something even higher value if they truly don't understand what Hubbard and the return of Jonathan Brooks kind of presents in that scenario. Did I say Jonathan Taylor? I may have said Jonathan Taylor like 10 times in a row there, and I didn't even realize. Thank you. Let's see here. Q Hussein sends in a question, says, give Brian Robinson Jr. and J.K. Dobbins for Bijan. In a half PPR, my other running backs are Montgomery and Chase Brown. I mean, theoretically, you're giving away too many points for one singular player. Depending on like when I look at your team as a whole, right? Can you survive with Montgomery, Chase Brown, and Bijan rest of the season? Absolutely. And if you can only start 2 starting running backs and 1 flex in your league, having 4 of these guys may not be the right answer. At least at this point, you're getting out of a Brian Robinson injury and you're getting a player of the caliber of Bijan. I'm okay with the trade. I don't love it because I think, Brian Robinson, thus far this season when healthy, he's was he like a 14.5 fantasy point per game player and a half PPR? J.K. Dobbins has been very effective. Quite frankly, I mean, it could be argued that Brian Robinson Jr. has been better than Bijan. Now, do I expect him to be better going forward? No, but they're close enough to where giving J.K. on top of it may be a little bit sketchy. But overall, you can survive it and certainly continue to elevate your team in this circumstance. So I don't mind the trade. Just giving you my context and my thoughts on it. De Villalobos sends in a question. Says, I have Lamb on bye. I lost Rice. I'm 4-2 currently. Trade Adams and Jonathan Taylor for Chase. That's too much. No, I wouldn't do that. My running backs are K9, Hunt, Charbonnet. Nope, not interested. I think Jonathan Taylor plays this week. So I think you're giving up too much in this circumstance. Yeah, it just leaves you. I understand like you're 4-2, but you're not 2-4. If you're 2-4, then we're making moves like this to try to rapidly turn around your season. But considering your record, you're fine. I wouldn't go as far as to making this egregious of a trade. Cup over Adams says, Mr. Nice Guy. I would agree. I'd probably just rather have Cup at this point. Is Jerome Ford someone you would hang on to? No, I've already dropped him in all my leagues. I was telling y'all last week to drop him already. But now that he sustained that injury, I'm already done with it. I've already dropped him on all my teams, so I've done rid of the pain that Jerome Ford has inflicted on me. You know, in the preseason, I thought Jerome Ford would be the Chuba Hubbard that is existing right now, but instead it's Chuba Hubbard that is the guy that we should have been investing in. I did not anticipate that the running game of the Carolina Panthers was going to be better than the running game of the Cleveland Browns. Again, that is an unpredictable factor that just came out of nowhere and obviously delivered for those of you who invested in Chuba Hubbard despite obviously the Jonathan Brooks situation. Running backs are the following. Yeah, no, listen, I'm not going to make that trade. De Villalobos. YG says Debo, Achane for Connor and DK. I would say, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I believe that once Tua comes back, if that is in fact week 8 or 9, Achane and Debo are the more valuable side long term. So, considering Achane is past his bye and all that kind of jazz, if you can wait for Achane to get Tua Tagovailoa back, I'd prefer to keep the Debo Achane side. If you're trading for that side, then great. If not, the only reason I'd ever make the trade of this, I don't think I'd ever make a trade of this caliber. You could do it. I don't think it's a bad trade. I just think that you're potentially losing out on long-term value. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Thank you again, YG. Appreciate it. Ando says, in a half PPR, rest of the season, Brian Robinson Jr. or James Conner. Looking at their offenses, let's just put it this way, right? Under the assumption they were both healthy for the remainder of the year, okay? Fully healthy, never miss a game, neither of them for the remainder of the season. I would say that Brian Robinson Jr. outscores James Conner. But health is a factor, especially considering Brian Robinson already dealing with a knee injury. So that doesn't really help him in this circumstance. On the other end, you have James Conner, who's always gotten injured every year, has never played a full healthy season. In fact, in his career, I don't think he's ever played more than 13 games. Let me see here. Which isn't to say that he has to get hurt this year. It's just that you got to be careful, right? Past, I wouldn't say past success, but past happenings are the biggest indicator of future potential events, right? Yeah, he's had one season in which, with Arizona, he played 15 games. Outside of that, every other season, 13 games. Last 2023, 13, 2022, 13, 2021 was 15, and then 13 in 2020, 10 in 2019. Again, a lot of injuries throughout his career, but hopefully he can stay healthy. All right, let's see here. Scrolling back down. Okay. Ridge Wagner has sent in a question. Thank you, Ridge. Appreciate it. Rich says, would you do T. Higgins and Devontae Smith for Tyreek Hill in a half PPR? No, I would keep both those wide receivers, personally. You would have to be in a smaller team league. Like I'm looking at it, you said you have BTJ, you have Puka, you have Tank Dell, and you have Amari Cooper as your other wide receivers. You're currently 5-1. Theoretically, right, Tyreek Hill with a return to Tua Tagovailoa would provide you a 20-point wide receiver. But what you have as of right now with Devontae Smith and T. Higgins, excuse me, I don't know why I almost choked on my own spit. What you have as it currently stands with Devontae Smith and T. Higgins provides you, those would be your starters every week. Like, it'd be T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Puka every week. If you can start 3 wide receivers, maybe 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Am I more willing to maybe do a trade where I'm sending away like Higgins with BTJ? Yes. but that's just because of my preference on the value rest of the season. Otherwise, I'm okay with the entire concept of the deal. It's just the players that you're giving is what keeps me a little bit worried. Like, if you can give away Tank Dell and BTJ, be done with it. If it's Tank Dell Devontae, I'd still even be done with it. Give it away. But yeah, Teagan's and Devontae, in my opinion, are a little bit too much. All right, let's see here. Jake in the chat says, should I trade Jordan Mason and Devontae Smith for Kenneth Walker and Madison when I had a chance? 5-1. Honestly, Madison's fodder. That trade is purely just Devontae Smith, Kenneth Walker, and I honestly think that you're in a solid spot. And I don't have Christian McCaffrey. No, I get it, but I honestly think that you're fine. Madison, again, with Zamir White comes back, that's just going to be a complete disaster of a backfield, I think. Anonymous says, is Ford a drop? Yes, he is a drop. I'll only have Kyron and Javonte as my running backs. Then you just got to hit the waiver wire and pick up potentially anything that you can get. Jason William in the chat says, how would you rank these running backs? Garendo, Vidal, Chandler, Jalen Warren, long-term options. As for long-term options, the highest valued player is Ty Chandler. The second highest valued, in my opinion, or that's Jalen Warren, not Jalen Wright. Okay. So Ty Chandler, well, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, if it's Jalen Warren's the most valuable of the group. Then Ty Chandler's second. Then Vidal is 3. And then Garendo is 4. Because, again, Christian McCaffrey will eventually return. And if not, Mason will figure it out. Thank you. Robert sent in a question. Thank you, Robert. It says, I have Fields and Richardson. Man, there are so many of you that have the Fields-Richardson combo. It is ridiculous. I actually want to know what the percentage is. I'm sure that ESPN or Sleeper or Yahoo, they all have the format and they can actually look it up, but that has got to be a really high percentage. Anyway, as for your team, Bijan, K9, Brian Robinson, McNichols, you have Devontae Smith, Diggs, Juju, JSN, Laporta, defenses the Vikings and Chargers. Okay, very well. You have Wright as your kicker. Should I make any changes? I mean, look, as it currently stands, your two quarterbacks are solid. Fields, Richardson, you're going to continue to roll Fields until otherwise noted that Richardson can, potentially be capable of producing as your starting quarterback. Bijan solid, K9 solid, Brian Robinson solid. Not really moving anything there. I don't see that you need to. As for your wide receivers, Devontae Smith is great. So is Diggs. Juju will be able to serve pretty well. I talked about it earlier today. When we track back to 2022, in games in which Juju was given ample opportunity as a member of the Chiefs, there was 9 games in which he was given 5 or more targets back in 2022. In those games, averaging over 16 fantasy points per game on average in a half PPR. And additionally, 7 of those 9 games were 10 plus fantasy points. So Juju has been relatively effective in that offense in the past and will continue to be in the absence of Rashee Rice. JSN's kind of like a fill-in option when needed. Laporta solid, hopefully. One catch is not very exciting, but we're hoping that he can figure it out. The Vikings defense is great. You can drop the Chargers at this point. Yeah, I don't think you need to make any immediate moves here. I think you're pretty solid as it stands here, Robert. Thank you. Let's see here. Constantino is singing Red Hot Chili Peppers in the chat. I don't know why. Constantino, you good, bro? Anadi says, I'm 5-1. I have the first waiver prio, but lack depth. Any of the players... Oh, my YouTube just crashed. Scrolling back. Let me refresh the page. Any players in your waiver wire video worth burning prio? I'd probably say no. Like, unless you were dealing with a lot of injuries, I'd say that no one is really worth number 1 prio at the moment. Like, for the running back position, I'd probably say that Ray Davis is probably number 1 now. But unless you have James Cook, you're probably not burning the prio. So at this point, am I burning prio for Juju or Dobbs or anybody like that? No. Am I burning prio for Tank Bigsby? I think at this point I am. Based on what ETN has produced in the last 3 consecutive games, I would burn it for Bigsby. Now, Bigsby is in that video, but as a contingency, like, hey, if these guys aren't already picked up, you'd go after them, please and thank you, get it done. But yeah, that's the only thing. Mikey says, happy birthday. Thank you, Mikey. John S. says, Laporta or Ingram rest of the season. If you're playing in a full PPR, remember that Ingram was the tight end 2 overall last season. So there's a chance that he could very easily do it again. So am I saying that he's better than Laporta at the moment? No. I'm just saying maybe hold on to both of them and play them both, honestly. Maybe just, play one in the flex, one at tight end, and let it ride. Because honestly, both are going to be great going forward here. Trade BTJ and Rico Dowdle for HN. I'm 4-2. At that point, I'm okay with it, but you'd have to have like pretty good wide receiver depth. Because again, you're giving away BTJ, which would be a supposed starter for you or expected starter. If it's not, if you've got like 3 other studs of wide receiver that can, and you can suffice giving a player of that caliber up, then I'd say, okay, sure. All right, maybe suffice wasn't the right word, but I love the word, so I just throw it out there always. Let's see here. Admiral sends in a question. Says, I traded Terry for Chubb. Did I sell? I think you did a little bit. I have good wide receivers. I have Garrett, Marvin Harrison, Reed, Deontay Johnson, Shaheed. I think you've got solid wide receivers too. I don't disagree. I just don't know if Chubb is going to be of the value that you want him to be. So when I was looking at the overall value of Chubb going into this week earlier today, I was doing a little bit of research on it. So when I look at the rushing attempts for the Cleveland Browns thus far this season on average, their running backs are averaging about 16 rushing attempts per game and 6 targets per game. So about 22 opportunities. If we were going to see Nick Chubb get the vast majority, I'm talking about 75+% of those overall opportunities. So 4 targets and probably somewhere between like 4, maybe let's say 14 rushing attempts and 4 targets a game. If he's going to get that kind of share of opportunity, then this is not going to be a sell. And if Chubb gets back to being the normal Nick Chubb, or at least let's say 80% of normal Nick Chubb is like 16 points per game and a half PPR, right? Let's say he's a 12 point or 11 point per game player and a top 24 running back rest of season. At that point, he's still going to be a solid option. That being said, I think Terry McLaurin's been playing incredibly well. And I mean, that offense it's one of the best in the league, and it's kind of hard to sell any players off of them at the moment. Andrew Clark sends in a question. Says, should I trade Achane? Who is good target? Depends. Andrew Clark, do you have a 1-5, 2-4, or 3-3 record? If you have a 3-3 record, I'd keep him. If you have a 2-4 or 1-5 record, you could theoretically send him off now because you're not going to be able to maybe use him for the next 2 weeks here. And if you're going to get behind the 8 ball and be a 1-7, 1-8 team, 2-6 team, you might want to ship him off before you get to a point to where you have to win 7 consecutive games to make the fantasy playoffs. So as for what you would look for in exchange for him, I mean, again, I don't want to give away a league winner for scraps, right? If I'm going to get somebody in return, like at this point, I'm looking at players and I'm thinking I want Aaron Jones at very base minimum, Tony Pollard. I would like a Josh Jacobs or a Gibbs, a Chase Brown, somebody like that. Somebody that can at least give me like 15 points in a game in a full PPR. So that's what I'd go after. Anything less than that, not interested. Thank you. All right, let's scroll down here a little bit. We had another question that was sent in from Mikey. Mikey, thank you. Mikey had sent happy birthday and then sent in a question after. I appreciate it, Mikey. Says 2 out of 2. Okay, so this is 2 out of 2. Then where's number 1, Mikey? Okay, first question for Mikey in the chat says, what should I do for my running backs? I have Etienne, Rashad White, Mason, Javonte, Chandler, Justice Hill. Trades should I do? I don't think you can trade any of them. Okay, so here's the issue. Etienne's injured, Rashad White's injured, Mason's injured, Javonte's a bum, and Chandler only actually has value in the absence of Aaron Jones. And Justice Hill, again, will never show up ever again. So what are you dealing with right now? The only way to improve running back is to take one of these running backs, take your best receiver, and go get 2 running backs in exchange. That's the only way. That is the only actual suggestion I can make. You have to take a player that is not a running back on your team in order to try to get away or try to get back multiple running backs that can start going forward. Otherwise, we are in absolute trouble. Thank you. Constantino says, you said give it away? Got it. Give it away now. But listen, I wasn't breaking out into song. Jeez Louise. Okay, let's see here. Kate in the chat says, how valuable is Lazard after this week? I mean, I think Lazard has been valuable, right? He's proven that he's a top 36 wide receiver. So we leave him as such. Now, is he good enough to trade? If you can trade him, you trade him. Because again, the looming threat of Devontae Adams being traded to that team is always a fear of mine. Jared Goff or Prescott rest of the season, the Cowboys they're cooked. Let's be honest. It's Jared Goff. Thank you. I mean, I didn't anticipate in any sort of capacity. Like, 2 of the more shocking events, right? First and foremost, okay, the Lions dropping 47 points? Dude, the Lions were so in their bag, it was embarrassing. I'm sorry, like I don't care what kind of rivalry you have. Once you start using hook and ladders with right tackles, we're getting to an egregious volume of like in your bag status. Additionally, I didn't anticipate that the Buccaneers were going to drop a 50 bomb. That is ridiculous. Anyway, Boy sends in a question. It says, in a 12-man half PPR, I'm 3-3. Lamar, Jonathan Taylor, Montgomery, Pollard, Dowdle, Moss, Brooks, Braylon Allen, Kendre Miller, Nico, Marvin Harrison, JSN, Polk, Ray. Okay, so you need wide receiver. So in your scenario here, Boy, I think your best overall situation probably is moving Nico Collins or one of your running backs for a wide receiver in return. Because you can survive by moving potentially, like, look, okay, so you have 3 really valuable running backs. Jonathan Taylor, Montgomery, and Pollard. Those are great running backs that I believe rest of season could very easily be top 12 for the remainder of the year and a half PPR. So those guys, if you're going to give one away, you're going to ask for a top 12 wide receiver in return. Now, if we're talking about a top 12 wide receiver for fantasy purposes, rest of season, again, there are a lot of really good names out there you can go after. You can go after names of the caliber of, theoretically, Chris Godwin's, Jamar Chase, Jaden Reed, Drake London, Jefferson, Lamb, Neighbors, McLaurin theoretically could be in that conversation. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you're going to give away a top 12 player, you better get back one, right? And I just named like 9 or 10 wide receivers there. So as of right now, you could take one of those players and go 1-for-1 and get a wide receiver in exchange. Potentially. Depends on how that team looks. Maybe if you have to throw in that, Pollard and throw in a JSN on top of it just to make sure it happens, then you make sure it happens. But outside of that, you'd probably have to take Nico Collins. You'd have to take Dowdle with him and then trade it for a wide receiver. Which, again, you're still looking for somebody in that top tier conversation because, Nico, 1 week has already been served. He comes back in 3 more weeks. You can survive without him, but to ensure the stability of your team in the long term, it's probably smart to move him if you're not going to just trade one of your running backs off. Okay, we had a question that came in from YG, which was a follow-up. Says, do I sell the Sun God? I don't think so, no. They have more weapons than last year, and he's not going to be top 3 if they blow out everyone. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that analysis. I think you're not wrong. They do have more viable weapons now. With Jameson Williams really stepping up, Tim Patrick is somehow getting more targets. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. But in this circumstance, I'm still not selling on Amon-Ra. I still think he's perfectly fine. Again, prior to this last week against Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, he was like 20-plus points every week for fantasy, right? Prior to the bye. Yeah, in a full PPR, weeks 2, 3, and 4, 22.9, 20.5, and 20.8. So are we going to just throw those games to the wind and say, like, those didn't count? Again, I understand he's coming off of a performance of 4 catches for 37 and a touchdown, 13.7. Let's not ignore what he's done in the past and what he'll continue to do in the future, which is score fantasy points at a high rate. So I wouldn't throw him away yet. Or ever, quite frankly. Craig, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Says, I benched Josh Allen and I'm crying right now. Yeah, again, sure. I told you guys benching Josh Allen's against my religion. Now, if you did it because you started Murray over him, I apologize in advance because I fucked that up. Let's see here. Brian says, hold or trade Olave. What kind of value does he have right now? I think it depends, right? Like, if Rattler's going to be his quarterback for the next 3 more games, and he's going to miss this week because he is going to miss due to concussion protocol, you're trading a wounded player. And if you're going to trade him away, people would have to be okay with not having him this week and then having 2 weeks of Rattler with him. And then looking at the Saints' upcoming schedule of games, just to put it in perspective, they have a week 12 bye. So if he misses this week, then it goes against the Chargers in Carolina with Rattler. Then he has Atlanta and Cleveland with potentially Carr coming back. Then a bye in week 12. Like, personally, I want Olave for the final stretch of games. I want him from weeks 13 through 17. LA Rams, New York Giants, Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers, and Las Vegas Raiders. I want him for that stretch. But in your scenario, if you can't afford to have him miss games for you, you're probably looking in the direction of moving him in exchange for, dude, it's tough. I guess you can go after Wan'Dale Robinson if you're playing. Well, I don't even know if they'll give you Wan'Dale Robinson at this point. Maybe you can go after Darnell Mooney. I don't know if they'll give you Darnell Mooney. You know what I mean? Those kind of players, that caliber. Okay, let's see here. If we scroll, where the heck did this go? Okay, so YG took care of that. We move on to Brandon DeCoste, who says, in a PPR, I'm currently 4-2. I have Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Malik Neighbors, Deontay Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Ferguson, Bears defense. Just traded Wilson and Johnson for JJ. Just traded Wilson and Johnson for JJ. Yeah, cool. All right, sounds good. No problem with that. Well done. I mean, again, I've always been saying it for the last 2 weeks. We're trying to give away Deontay Johnson if possible, because I'm afraid of the potential of Bryce Young coming back and taking over and tipping his value. But until then, yeah, you have 3 of the top 6 wide receivers rest of the season. So well done. Let's see here. Brian sends in a question. Brian, where is your question? Is it attached to it? No. Let's see if I can find it in the chat. Brian. Okay. Okay. Brian says, hold or trade a lot. Okay, yeah, we already took care of that question. Cool. Again, it depends. I have Godwin, Chase, Wicks, and Puka. At the moment, in your position, Wicks is not of value. Puka will come back in probably week 8, maybe week 9. Godwin and Chase will be able to fill in for your 1-2. Until then, if you want to still, move Olave, you can. It depends on your record. Like if you're 1-5, I'm like, okay, sure. We need a wide receiver for this week to try to give us a win. If you're not, and if you can survive without him for this week at least, then I'd keep it as such, because Shaheed's injury, let me go find actually the exact words that I read earlier today, just so I can convey them to you guys, because it didn't sound great. All right, let's look up Rashid Shaheed. Can I find the actual report? Where is it? Dude, where did I see it? Was it on Twitter? Maybe it was on Twitter. Let me go find my notifications. If I can't find it in 10 seconds here, I'm past it. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it. Let's scroll through here. I'm gonna Control-3 function this. Yeah, according to Ian Rappaport earlier today, about 7 hours ago, he said, and I quote, keep an eye on Saints wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, electric wide receiver / return to Rashid Shaheed. Did not practice today with a knee injury, described as concerning, source said. Okay, well, if a knee injury is concerning, that sounds like an injured reserve stint. Anyway, I could be wrong. Doesn't matter. We'll see. Moving on. We had a question that came in from Ray. Thank you, Ray. It says that in the standard Superflex format, I have Josh Allen, Geno, Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, London, Olave, Devontae Smith, Brian Thomas Jr., McBride, J.K. Dobbins, Chuba. Damn, it's a good-looking team. JSN and Herbert. And you're 2-4. No shit. Actually, I can believe it. Josh Allen had a couple bum weeks there. So did Josh Jacobs. Most recently, so did Olave, Brian Thomas Jr., Jonathan Taylor's been injured. But as a whole, when I look at this team, Devontae Smith was on bye, J.K. Dobbins was on bye. You know what? Now it makes sense. I understand. Trey McBride had a concussion, so did Devontae Smith. Now I know why you're 2-4. This being said, this is a strong-looking team. Rest of season, Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, Jacobs, London, Devontae Smith, BTJ, McBride, Dobbins, Chuba, Olave, JSN. That's a strong team. I don't think I'm making any moves at the moment with it. If you're making a move, you're taking Chuba Hubbard and you're trying to go get Aaron Jones. Somebody of that caliber, like I was mentioning earlier. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the happy birthday. Handle Hype says, Mahomes and Gibbs, I want to package them to a trade. Who should I target? Are you playing in a multi-quarterback league? Are you playing in a 2 QB Superflex format? If you are, then you can package that. Otherwise, nobody wants Mahomes, brother. Dylan Ross is in a half PPR 8-man league. I'm 4-2 current record. I have Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and DK Metcalf. Okay, so pretty solid players across the board, a wide receiver there. Obviously, you're waiting for them to return, which is unfortunate. Also, Aaron Jones, Mondre, Kareem Hunt, and Tyrone Tracy. How do I manage Puka / what running backs should I trade for? Okay, so here's the issue. You don't have Puka or Adams until further notice, but at least you have Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf this week, which, again, going forward with a 4-2 record in an 8-man league, I'm actually curious, how many teams make the playoffs in your league? Is it a 6-man playoff or is it a 4-man playoff? Depending on that, again, I think you're in a pretty good spot to be able to hold everything that you have and not have to make any moves. Obviously, we want to trade for a running back, but I think it's probably in your best interest to run with Kareem Hunt and Aaron Jones for this week and going forward, especially considering both are coming off bye and they will not be, experience the bye week going forward. So you'll be able to consistently start them. You want to wait until Tyreek, Puka, and Devontae Adams are back in full form before you end up moving them. Because right now you'd be selling for pennies on the dollar, and that wouldn't do you any service, especially with a 4-2 record. You want to gain value off the trades. You don't want to lose it. Thank you. YG had a follow-up, says, what's A-Chain's trade value right now? Sell for Jacobs? If you have a losing record, then sure. If you have a winning record, if you are 4-2, 5-1, 6-0, I am doing the opposite. I am buying HN for Jacobs. Let's see here. We scroll down. Waleed says, traded Debo and Swift for Kyron. 8-man league. Yeah, that's cool. I have no issue with that. That's a great trade. Thank you. Ando says, in a 3-3 fifth place, okay, 10-team league, half PPR, I traded Kareem Hunt, Brian Robinson Jr., and Tucker Crafts for Barkley. Yeah, I'm cool with it. I don't have an issue with that at all. Again, Kareem Hunt eventually will be replaced, mainly by Isaiah Pacheco. Brian Robinson Jr., again, still dealing with a knee injury, but is going to be of value. So he's mainly the proposition that, okay, you're getting a running back in return, and then you're giving away Kraft, which again should be top 12 rest of the season, and then you're stealing Barkley underneath their nose. So I think it's a fantastic move. Overall, I mean, really, anytime you get Barkley, I am more than happy with it. Can we get a James Cook IR stint? I don't know. I don't want that though. You're saying it like you want it, Supa. I don't know. We don't want it. Now, if you have Ray Davis and you don't have James Cook, then at that point, then I get it. Let's see here. Rob Castle, what's up? Says, is Mostert a start rest of season? I have Bigsby, Bucky, Connor, Dowdle, and Pacheco. I think Mostert, once Tua comes back, could very easily be a start rest of season. Could very easily. But that's under the assumption that the offense elevates greatly and are going back to looking like the 2023 Dolphins. Until then, as of right now, he's not a start in comparison to the alternative options you mentioned in regards to your team. Like going into this week, I'd rather play Connor and I'd rather play Bigsby. Dowdle's on bye. And Bucky's that other alternative option. But if Bucky is in a scenario, I mean, even if Rachaad White doesn't play, playing against Baltimore doesn't have me excited about the potential there. But I could justify it still as a flex. Let's see here. La Raza sends in a question. Thank you, La Raza. I appreciate it. Says in a 12-team half PPR 4-2 record, Baker Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Drake London, Terry McLaurin, Olave, Dalton Schultz rate my team. Honestly, the only thing that's missing is a consistent tight end for your team. Now, off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what Dalton Schultz did this week, so I'm going to go look it up for my own mental purposes. Let's see here. Dalton Schultz this last week. 4.7 fantasy points, 4 receptions, 27 receiving yards. Yeah. So, La Raza, the only thing that you require is a tight end. Now, that could be accomplished via waiver wire. But if that requires you to trade players away, I wouldn't do it. I'd keep it as is. You have a really strong team going forward with a healthy Bijan, Taylor, London, and McLaurin. The base pillars of your team are very powerful, along with Baker Mayfield, who's a top 5 quarterback. So at this point, I'm not moving anything. I'm keeping it as is, and I'm trying to consistently maybe get a couple options off the waiver for free. Like I'd wait till waivers run and then just go and invest in tight ends every week and hope that you maybe hit somebody that can be of value rest of the season. Thank you. Kyron Williams, ACL, sends in a super chat. Thank you very much. Very generous of you, Kyron Williams. Says, Brees won me the week, finally. Yeah, finally, right? I got Hurts, Anthony Richardson, Mixon, Jacobs, Brees, AJ Brown, Kupp, Mid Evans. All right, listen. Hold up. Okay, that is a disparaging comment that I will not stand for it. Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. They might as well put the gold jacket on this man's back today. As of thus far this season, in a PPR, he has 3 weeks of more than 23 fantasy points. Does he also have 3 weeks of less than 8 fantasy points? Abso-fucking-lutely. But I will say the 1 week against New Orleans was expected. And the other week against Denver was expected. Whenever he takes on the cornerbacks that give him trouble, they will give him trouble. But the rest of the season should be fine. A la this week. So I don't want to hear no Mid Evans, okay? That is slanderous comments. Anyway, continuing on. Kraft, Hawkinson, Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, Tracy, Dowdle, rate my team. Overall, it's a really strong team. Now, again, that's mainly because Jalen Hurts has passed his bye. You have Anthony Richardson, but you're never going to play him. Jalen Hurts is the guy. Mixon, Jacobs, Breece are solid. Good to go. No issue, no changes necessary. A.J. Brown, a full healthy Kupp. Mike Evans when he's on a hot streak, fantastic. Deontay Johnson for potential swap purposes. You have Devontae Adams in the wings. I mean, shoot. I mean, you have Hawkinson eventually coming back. This is a really strong team. Do I suggest you make a change? I don't think there needs to be a change in your roster. Maybe you can trade away, you can theoretically take Josh Jacobs and Deontay Johnson. You could, and just go get another running back. If you're going after one, go get Kyren Williams. Just to stand your name into even more of a pole position, just go get Kyren Williams. Maybe take Devontae Adams and Jacobs and just go get Kyren. I mean, you could. That's how much depth you have. You can abuse it. Roy Powell sends in a question. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Says, hey, I felt 2-4 today. In a 12-man full PPR, I have Jalen Hurts, okay, really good. Henry, Taylor, Achane, Chase Brown, Dowdle, Marvin Harrison, Higgins, Reed, J-Mo. Listen, across the board, you have really good running backs. You just need them to get healthy. Like, you know it and I know it, Roy Powell. Henry and Chase Brown will suffice until you get a healthy Jonathan Taylor and Achane back. And once they get back, you're going to have a hard time picking which running backs to play because they're all going to be monsters every week. So in this current circumstance, like, I understand your wide receivers are kind of leaving you, out for the, for the Wolves, Marvin Harrison specifically, but Higgins and Reed will suffice until then. Now, once you get Taylor and Achane back, there could be a conversation in which you take Chase Brown and you trade him away for a wide receiver, which you certainly could. Again, we're trading away a 15-point running back, assumably, for the remainder of the season. You go get a 15-point wide receiver and add it to your roster and then continue on. As for your question, you have Njoku, which I don't love, but you have Hawkinson, which again, hopefully he's going to be active this week against his former team, the Detroit Lions, which will be an exciting matchup to say the very least, which I'm hoping for. Chiefs defense, losing confidence. Do you believe this team is strong? Yeah, I do. Objectively, I do. I don't see, I see where your team is weak. It's just injuries. That's it. That is where your team hurts. And once they get healthy, I would expect you to win games on a consistent basis. Unless you might walk into a buzzsaw. Like teams this week walked into the Chris Godwin buzzsaw and you just got cooked. There's nothing you can do about it. Teams this week walked into a Jordan Love buzzsaw. It happens. Thank you. Myra Williams sends in a question. Says, I made 2 trades. I ended up total giving Gibbs, Chase Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Josh Downs. I got Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, Chris Godwin, and Jacoby Myers. Okay, so Gibbs, Chase Brown. You end up coming back with Breece Hall and Derrick Henry. Beautiful. We'll take it. Garrett Wilson. And, for Godwin, yeah, I don't have an issue with this. As a trade overall, across the board, I think that's great. I'll take the Derrick Henry side. Can I make arguments for the alternative side? Sure. But as of right now, I'm perfectly fine with Henry, Hall, and Chris Godwin coming back in return. That's great, in my opinion. Thank you. We had a question that came in from Daniel Ardy, who says, hey, Andrew, in a 12-man league, 2 flex, I'm 3-3. I have Josh Allen, Bijan, James Cook, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, Wandale Robinson, Freiermuth, Downs, Javonte, Amari Cooper, and Adams. Okay, looking at your team as a whole, don't love tight end. Freiermuth did get a touchdown taken back if it wasn't for the fact that Fields, walked over the line of scrimmage before he threw the ball. Or, yeah, I don't know. Fields lost his spatial awareness for some reason in that circumstance. Either way. Don't love the tight end. James Cook injury does hurt, but again, Ray Davis is out there. I'm sure he is. Bijan and Aaron Jones will suffice until then. T. Higgins being your number 1 wide receiver makes me think that you had Rashee Rice on your team and you lost him. Otherwise, you're waiting for Devontae Adams' return. If you cannot get Devontae Adams to play for you this week, I'm trading for Devontae Smith, if possible, to try to broker some sort of deal to where you get value going forward. Otherwise, you might take Adams and just go for 2 different wide receivers, just to kind of give yourself a little bit more depth in a 2-flex format. Because really, you cannot start Amari Cooper or Javonte Williams going forward. It's too risky. All right, let's see here. Andy sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 1-5. Christian McCaffrey, Achane. Trade. Okay. Lamar, Mark Andrews, Najee Harris, BTJ Marvin Harrison. What is that? Terry McLaurin. Okay, cool. Andy, this is my suggestion. You're trading away Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, maybe, but Christian McCaffrey for sure. McCaffrey and Marvin Harrison get traded this week. Bring back any value you can. I don't care if it's a outright losing trade. You have to tell your league guys, this is the scenario. I'm 1-5. I need players who are going to play well this week. And from henceforth, Andy, you blow up your league with trades every week. You try to make trades that are advantageous matchups and they can guarantee you wins. Because at 1-5, you got to remember, 6 weeks into the season, we have weeks 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 8 games left. In order to make your league playoffs, under the assumption that you are in a 12-team league, 12 teams, 6 teams making the playoffs, you need 8 wins. You are going to need to win 7 of the next 8 games. If you're in a league in which you have potentially 12-team league and 8 teams make the playoffs, right, which is a little bit more lenient, at that point, you will still need to, in your next 8 games, win at least 5 of them. At least. And then even in that overall scenario, you are going to need to be better than 50% of the teams in points for, because you will tie with a 6-8 record. So, trades galore. Blow up the league. Start moving everything around. If you have a player that hits the bye week, they have to be traded in that given week. I'm moving Marvin Harrison. I'm moving Achane. I'm moving McCaffrey if I have to this week, and I'm getting any value that I can get in return in order to give myself a competent lineup that can get me a W in the week, and then I'm blowing it up again next week. Thank you. Alrighty. How long have we been here for? Time flies by, man, when you're having fun. An hour 18. Again, for those of you who are joining us today, hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing decent, just to give you an update. Again, we're only, 6 weeks now into the season? We got a lot of time. Again, there are still 8 more weeks until the fantasy playoffs begin, in which there are another 3 games. And then we get to week 18 where Andrew still does content. Either way. Typically, I like to have these streams about an hour, hour and a half. We're an hour, 19 minutes and 20 seconds in. So in about 5 minutes here, I'm going to close shop. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 running back rankings. And then again, I'm back tomorrow night live streaming here on the channel. So if you guys have any questions and I wasn't able to get to it today, you can also swing by tomorrow night. If not tomorrow night, again, I do have the Patreon. Link is down in the description. If you guys want to ask questions there, you can do so. Unlimited questions. All you got to do is make that pledge. It's not required. Again, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. I'm always here to post videos and live stream to try to answer questions. But that's if you have a dire question in a specific situation and, feel that I deserve the support in that regard. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Robert says, Andrew, do you think Fields/Richardson teams should think about pivoting off of one towards Drake May or Tua? Not really. Look, the way I see it, like if I look at the Dolphins' upcoming schedule, Tua's going to have to light up the league. Okay, we're going to have MVP Tua because let's say he returns in week 9. Okay, let's say he doesn't return in week 8, even though I think he should play in week 8. Buffalo, then the LA Rams, Las Vegas Raiders, New England, Green Bay. Like 3 of those games, I tell you to fire him up. Los Angeles, Vegas Raiders, New England, I tell you to fire him up in all those circumstances. Then he has to take on Green Bay, the New York Jets, Houston, San Francisco, Cleveland, which I don't love those matchups. But as a whole, it should be a better offense. Now, I'm not saying I'm excited about Tua. I'm excited about Tyreek, Achane, because they're playmakers that will elevate because of Tua's presence. I'm not pivoting to Tua. Last season, in terms of in terms of consistency chart that was included in my draft guide, he was one of the most inconsistent fantasy quarterbacks. He only averaged 15 points per game as a quarterback. The volume of times he produced less than 10 fantasy points was alarming last season, and many people thought he was good. Just stick with what you have. I'd say all those teams that have the Fields Richardson, stick with it because the rushing upside of a quarterback is significantly more powerful. Chargers defense this week, yeah, they're my number 1 in terms of the waiver wire options if they're still available potentially. I lucked out. My opponent played Dak and benched Goff this week. Congratulations, JMW. You got really lucky, especially when they pulled Dak in the fourth quarter. That was the biggest surprise. I thought they would have let him loose in the second half, and maybe he would have recouped all those fantasy points that he lost. Alan says Vidal, Corum, Roshan Johnson, or Grendo. Pick 2. Is this like long-term or is this week? If we're talking long-term, Corum is number 1, and I'd probably say Vidal is number 2. Now, if we're thinking this week, Grendo has a chance to play, and Roshan is, he's on bye week, so you can't really do anything with him. So it's just between Vidal and Corum at that point. And between those 2 teams, I think there's a good chance that the Raiders get blown out, and maybe, especially if Kupp is available, you pick up Corum and play him with Grendo. So yeah, it's still the same answer. Thank you. I just have to talk myself into it, Brian says, my quarterback is Caleb and Darnold. Defense is Steelers and the Vikings. Okay, so you have pretty good quarterbacks and you have pretty good defenses. So you're pretty good to go there, Brian, in those circumstances at least. Havocs, you're talking to somebody else. Never mind, we're good to go there. No problem, Walid. Okay, Constantino, he's talking to Havocs as well. Okay. How do we feel about Ayuk? Man, I don't know. I want to be confident. I want to represent confidence because I know he's a good football player. The issue is he just does not get enough opportunity. That is just a fact of the matter. If he had been given more opportunity on a consistent basis, we'd have no issue. But that is the crux of that entire offense. Nobody is guaranteed a high volume of targets, and because of that, they are subject to inconsistency of sorts. Let's see here. Joshua Caps says, would you say that Ayuk plus Pollard for Jonathan Taylor is an overpay? No, I don't think so. If Jonathan Taylor is healthy for the remainder of the season, I would assume, based on what Jonathan Taylor's done this season, I think every single game he has played, he's at over, what's the stat? I think maybe it's each of the last 3 games he's played. He's gone over 100 yards in each of those games. And in 4 games he's played, he scored 5 touchdowns. Like, I'd assume that Jonathan Taylor is a perfectly fine option to get in return for that. That's not a problem for me. Assuming he's healthy for the remainder of the season, of course. That is, I think that's an implied assumption, but just wanted to let it be known. Even though it's a unspoken thing, I need to say it, just in case. Havocs, what are you saying here? It says, yeah, my league is a 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex league. And the guy that wants to trade me is currently 1-5. So he really wants Lamar. Who do you think is higher upside in the long run? What's the rest of your team look like? If he wants Lamar, he better be giving you back a stud quarterback. If not, he better be giving you back a top-tier player at running back or wide receiver. Laporta or Komet? Komet's on bye week this week, but Laporta is still the rest of season guy. But having them both on roster for sure if you can. Thanks, Andrew. You've been fire lately. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Glad I can help in any way, guys. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to call it, man. I appreciate y'all. Again, for those of you who sent in supers, thank you very much. For those of you who continue to support the channel, click the like button down below, all that kind of jazz to continue to support. I appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 running back rankings. Until then, again, this is the waiver video from earlier today. We talk about wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterback, kickers, and defenses that you could potentially pick up. Of course, if you are dealing with injuries, or if you, of course, potentially dealing with bye weeks, the Cowboys and the Bears on bye. So check out the video, click the like button on that. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and cue the greatest guitar solo of all time, the double helix. Until then, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.